Dmitry Babich is a senior journalist now joining us. He's been listening to this conversation intently. Mr. Babich, good morning. Thank you for joining us on Times Now. Putin and Modi have shared a hug, handshake, smiles. This will only mean that Trump imposes more sanctions on India.
Well, putting aside the huge issue of the Ukrainian war, which is a big tragedy for us, and there is a big variety of views on it in Russia. But what Mr. Trump did, connecting the Ukrainian war and the tariffs on Indian goods, was simply illegal. America was in its full right to impose sanctions on Russia, prohibiting its own companies to trade with Russia, even though this is also very dangerous. For example, America supplied us, they sold us Boeing, airplanes, air jets, and now they are not supplying spare parts for Boeing. This is simply dangerous and cruel because a disaster can happen. But okay, America was in its right to impose sanctions, using its own companies. But when America uses the so-called secondary sanctions, prohibiting the sovereign nations, such as India, to buy Russian oil or other Russian goods, this is simply not legal. India is a sovereign country. It can decide by itself where to buy its oil, with whom to trade, and no other country, including the United States, can dictate to India how it should behave in international affairs and in international economics. I think this is the message that President Putin is going to pass to Modi, because our Russian officials have
You're
been
right.
saying
President Putin, on his part, actually said it on Trump's face in Alaska. When he met Trump, he said, look, after you've come to power, the business with America has gone up. Russia's business with America has gone up. So he showed him the mirror there. But I was only talking about pure optics, going by the pictures and commentary, even on Russian social media handles. RT, for instance, is, having a go at the pictures of Modi and Putin together. But very quickly, Brahma Chalani, I'm sure you're aware of what Peter Navarro has said. Now, not the first time that he's put his foot in the mouth, but here's a Harvard economist who says things like, why is India in bed with China and Russia? By that he meant, why is Modi meeting Putin and Xi Jinping? And then he went on to, give us that Brahmin sermon.
Well, I think, you have to keep in mind that what Trump is doing is essentially stepping up pressure on India while ensuring that he does not burn diplomatic bridges with Modi. He has unleashed 3 attack dogs on India: the Treasury Secretary, Stock Besant, his trade advisor, Peter Navarro, and his top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett. They are attacking India frequently now. Trump's playbook is simple. While not taking on Modi directly, he is mounting pressure on India in the hope that India will cave in. But the problem is that he doesn't understand India. Through his punitive tariffs and sanctions on India, he's only ensuring one thing, that the US shoots itself in the foot, because heavy-handed pressure will not bend India. It will only compel India to diversify away from India, to at least reduce its dependence on Washington. That will undercut Washington's own economic and strategic interests. We saw what happened in 2022 after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Biden White House tried to strong-arm India into taking sides in the Ukraine war. It warned India that the costs and consequences of neutrality would be, quote-unquote, significant and long-term. What did that threat do? That bullying only reinforced India's determination to stay neutral. Now, what Trump is doing has nothing to do with Russian oil and everything to do with muscling India into a one-sided trade deal. That is his goal. Nothing to do with Russian oil. If it had anything to do with Russian oil or the Ukraine war, he would have imposed his secondary sanctions on China, which is the world's largest importer of Russian oil and gas, and on Europe. The European Union contributes more to Russia's coffers through its energy imports from Russia than India does by buying Russian oil. The difference is this: Biden's bullying was clumsy, Trump's is nakedly coercive, and just as doomed to fail. Now, if India were to give in or even compromise in some way, you have to just look at the Mexico example. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, she is learning the hard way that the more you give in to Trump's pressure tactics, the more he tries to extort, to squeeze. In fact, he boasted the other day, Mexico does what we tell them to do. This is the way he is now crowing in public. But India is no Mexico, nor is India Japan or South Korea or the EU, all of which succumb to Trump's pressure. Trump's crude bargaining tactics will force India to diversify away from the US to the detriment of Washington's own interests.
But why is the US doing this? You know, you were talking about 3 people that Trump has unleashed. When will they stop? Will they, is there a line, or is this now par for the course, this unhinged attack, uncivilized language, it does not even make sense. Sushant Sareen?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because, incidentally, you've forgotten that Navarro is not just a Harvard economist, he's also a felon, a convicted felon. He has been put in jail also. So that's the kind of people Trump has surrounded himself with. And he's the guy who Elon Musk very eloquently called dumber than a brick, which is quite clear from everything he has said because he knows nothing about India. He uses familiar old tropes to target India. He thinks that by using this kind of language, they're going to be able to pressure India, little realizing that this is precisely the kind of language which will, stiffen India's back. And even if some deal or compromise was possible, becomes even more difficult with this kind of language being used. I think Brahma is absolutely right. This whole Russian oil business is an excuse. It's an excuse for 2 reasons. One is on the trade deal. But look, on the trade deal, anybody with half a brain knows that India went, virtually to the maximum extent possible in the trade deal that was negotiated with the Americans. There were certain red lines which we were not willing to cross. But beyond that, for most of American products, I think it was a really sweet deal that the Americans were offered. The fact that they decided that they're going to reject it is on them. It's not on us, number one. Number two, on this whole issue of, imposing the kind of tariffs that they've started imposing. I completely agree. There's no justification for it. Why don't you do it on the Europeans? Viktor Orban of Hungary is such a good friend of yours. He has gone against Ukraine directly by saying that the Ukrainians have sabotaged the pipeline, bringing him energy sources. Now, if he can, go to that extent, and he's your ally, and you don't take any action against him, how is it you are taking action against us?